أولئك هم الغافلون. صدق الله العظيم. Yesterday we spoke of hidayah and guidance versus misguidance. That Allah Ta'ala's guidance is the true guidance. So in continuation with that, the Quran Kareem states that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has created all of humanity, all of jinn, and the necessary result and the necessary destination of some of these people and some of the jinn will be Jahannam. That it's not outside of the Mashi'ah or the intent of Allah Ta'ala, or outside of the will of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala rather. It is not outside the knowledge of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that such people, the part of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's creation, they will be misguided, they will fall to their desires, they will fall into the traps of shaitan, they will be enticed by worldly endeavors, temporary pleasures. This is not outside of the ilm and knowledge of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, neither is this outside of the will of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala allows for this to happen. So in continuation with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Quran Kareem mentions that indeed we have created many jinn and many humans that the result will be that towards Jahannam. Why did this happen? Why is their result Jahannam? So for this, the ayat karima refer to certain faculties which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has created. To understand this, if we see all of the creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, one group of the creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala are those things that we refer to as lifeless. Otherwise, there's the way we see it, it's lifeless. It doesn't grow, it doesn't speak, it doesn't eat, it doesn't consume, for example, stones, rocks, these things, we would consider them lifeless. However, in the knowledge of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Quran Kareem says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. That anything and everything that is created, that is existing, everything does the tasbih of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Whether we understand it or not is besides the point. As the Quran says, وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. You don't understand it. The way we do tasbih, it's through the tongue, it's in a particular way. That doesn't mean to say that all of creation does it in the same way. Very simple example, that a person from another part of the world, if they speak in their own language, you and I being human, we still won't be able to understand it. So if one human cannot understand another human, why do we make ourselves the gauge for all of other creation? So that is one level of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then there is the life of plants, vegetation. These things grow, they give fruit, they bloom, they flower. Third level, higher level than that, are those of animals. That Allah Ta'ala gave them certain senses, that they eat, they drink, they're able to mate and reproduce, etc., etc. So these faculties have been given to them and they do all of this. Higher than that is the life that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the hayat and life that Allah Ta'ala has given insan and human beings, that with all of these faculties which others have been given, plus on top of that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave us rationale, aql, and because of this, all of these things that Allah Ta'ala has given a person, has given humans, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has also given them what we refer to as taklif and responsibility. That in this world, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has only made human beings and jinn responsible for their actions. Why? Because they have been given the faculties which make it such that they are able to reason in this way. They are able to decipher between right and wrong, good and bad, evil and just, justice and injustice. They are able to see what is good, what is not good. These are all things which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has given insan, human beings, and because of this, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has also made human beings responsible. So the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave all of these faculties is that they use it in the proper way, in the proper manner. The objective of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the insan is to gain the ma'rifah, recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and through that ma'rifah, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's at the level of objective which sets a person aside from all other creation. But now if the human being, he also uses all of these faculties that he's been given and doesn't put them in use towards the objective that he has been created, then what's the difference between that insan, that human being, versus animals, for example? In fact, an argument can be made, and the Quran Kareem does say this, that makes you even worse. That human being who's after being given everything, that human being who has understanding, after that he does not make the right decisions, and after that he does not fulfill his objective, then that person is worse than animals. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran Kareem says, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. These people who their eventual result will be towards Jahannam, they have hearts لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا, through which they have no understanding. They've been given hearts, it's not that they don't have a heart. They've been given understanding. But لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا, they don't understand anything through it. Meaning, the way the channel, the way you're supposed to channel this heart, the way you're supposed to channel this understanding, and how you're supposed to use it, because you didn't put it into that use, then it's just as good as not having one. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا. They have eyes, but they cannot see through them. But some say, well, we see people who disbelieve and they engage in sins, they can see very well. That seeing is a seeing only of the physical aspect of seeing. The seeing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants is that when you see these signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this should lead you towards also appreciating and recognizing the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's as if, again, it's as if you have not seen. You looked but you did not see. وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. They have ears, Allah ta'ala gave them the sense, but لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. They don't hear through them. Again, same thing, they don't use it in the correct manner. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. These people, they are just like cattle. An'am is used for four-legged animals, especially cows, goats, sheep. These people are like cattle in the sense that just as these animals, what do from morning to evening? Animals have just a few things that they care about. One, their own food and drink. Two, mating. And to some degree, having a type of shelter. Anything beyond this, yes, someone attacks them, they defend themselves. If they're predatory animals, then they attack others, and again, that comes back to looking for one's food. The only real desires they have are 2 to 3. Food, drink, mating, and to some degree, not even to some degree, some of them will have an understanding of shelter. This is how animals work. Now the human being should think to himself that, how am I spending my life? Is the only thing I care about also mating? Also only just food and drink and feeding my family? Because animals also do that. One goes to hunt and feeds the children. Some stay back and others go hunt. And the third, shelter. In our understanding, shelter meaning housing, building homes, etc. If a person's life only revolves around these 3 things, the Quran Kareem is saying, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. That you're just like animals, because animals do the same thing. In fact, the Quran Kareem says, بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلْ. In fact, you are even worse. Why? Because that's all the animal has been given. It doesn't understand anything beyond that. It's not been told, it hasn't been made responsible for anything beyond that. But you've been made responsible beyond that because you have an understanding which is beyond that. بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. Truly those are the people who are heedless. They do not heed the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those abilities and faculties Allah ta'ala has given insan, they do not put those to use. So these are heedless people. We make dua that Allah ta'ala gives us understanding of the Quran Kareem.